Hey, what's up, y'all? So here we go. Before I get into this video, I want to start by making a disclaimer and say do not commit suicide after watching this video or try to harm yourself in belief that when your soul leaves here, your spirit will remain and your spirit will be infinite. So you like want to skip the process or go to rush and see what that experience is like. All right, and I know that sounds kind of out there. However, I thought about, while thinking about what I'm going to say right now, I came across this thought, like maybe sometimes you just don't know, especially these days, like you don't know. So now listen to what I'm about to say. This content actually stems from something Alyssa Trahan, the astrologer, was speaking about not too long ago, and rather recent as a matter of fact. And it's based upon the soul being separate from a life, or the soul being separate from living. And because she done stirred the pot. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much. You know what I'm saying? And there's people on both sides of the spectrum on this idea, and so you know me. If I disagree, I'm gonna disagree. You know what I'm saying? But this is something that I actually listened to, looked at, and for the most part, I agree. But I'm going to state why I agree, and I'm going to break it down the way that I break it down so that maybe others who are already familiar with what I'm talking about can understand from my perspective as well. Maybe I touched on something that she didn't, or maybe those who don't understand, period, and disagree with her can see where I'm coming from with it and see if you can see it from that spectrum, from that side of the spectrum as well. So I'm going to break it down astrological wise, from what I interpret, from what I understand to describe. So the soul, you heard me speak about this before, is associated with the sun. And to me, when she speaks about the fabric of life, of living, of how basically you don't, this is what she phrased it, like you don't need a soul to live. So I associate life with the spirit, and the spirit with the mind, and the mind with the moon. So this is how I make the distinction and the separation between those two. Now, the reason why I believe that the life aspect can actually, things can live without an actual soul, which is egotistical, is because, not only because when you're actualized in a human body that you can live with the basic necessities, we know that, but from my experiences with ghosts, spirits. So this is why I'm saying I associate life with the spirit and with the mind and with the moon, because, and I know, again, this sounds out there. This sounds like, what do somebody might be like, yo, he's talking bug guy, talking about ghosts and stuff like that. But I'm going to give you once upon a time story as well. And I don't care who don't like it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to put it out there. So this is what I mean, right? The soul, all right, so speaking in terms of ghosts, I'm gonna break down the mind and the moon and things like that, and how they are separated, right? Once upon a time, my father, he's no longer with us, right? In the physical frame, in the existence, you can no longer touch my father. He is not tangible in this plane. You understand what I'm saying? So once I had a dream about my father, and I was in this apartment, as a matter of fact. I'm dreaming, and he is sitting inside of the living room he's sitting on this couch, as a matter of fact, in my dream. Now, I'm in the bed while I'm having this dream, so I'm kind of drifting from my bed through my hallway, coming into this part of the area, and it's dark. Like, I'm sleeping in the dark anyway, right? But when I get here, it's dark anyway. And he's sitting here in a gray suit, sharp. My father used to dress mad sharp anyway, but he's still sharp. Like, it's that dude, you know what I'm saying? He's sitting on the couch, but he's not saying anything. You know what I'm saying? He's just sitting there, and he looks up at me. And I'm like, a part of me was happy to see him, and another part of me felt violated. So, I don't know if I was able to change that feeling when I was in the dream. I'm just giving you the honest truth of how I felt while I was dreaming, right? So I see him, and I only say one thing. I said, why didn't you knock first? Because to me, like, he just let himself in. I'm like, yo, how did you get in here? You know what I'm saying? So people, like, if you come to see me, like, if you could ring the buzzer all you want, I'm not answering the door for you. You know what I'm saying? That's just the bottom line. Like, that's how I operate. You know what I mean? You can ring it and ring it. I will not get mad. I will sit here and won't even care. Like, I will turn up the music or something. Like, I'm not answering the door for you because you're coming unannounced. You understand what I'm talking about? I don't care if it's the mailman. You're not getting in. Ring somebody else's buzzer. You're unannounced. You come here unannounced. I don't operate that way, right? So, and not too long ago, I recall before having this dream, someone had actually, you know, rang the buzzer a few times, and I'm like, yo, why are people ringing the buzzer? No one spoke to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just leave them ringing the buzzer, whatever. So that's what I asked my pops. I'm like, why didn't you just ring the buzzer? Why didn't you? I said, why didn't you ring the buzzer? Which is kind of odd, right? Because I just got finished explaining that I don't answer the door for nobody. You know what I'm saying? Even if they ring the buzzer. But I'm assuming that in this dream that, of course, my father is going to call me on the phone and be like, hey, what's up, son? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I say, blah. You know, I'm on my way over, whatever the case may be, and then come. You know what I'm saying? So I wake up right after that. And about 3 seconds later, the buzzer rings. Mind you, it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Don't even ask me why I didn't answer the door. If you ask me if you ask me why I didn't answer the buzzer, I'm going to say for the simple fact of I just don't answer the buzzer, and I know it was not him. You know what I'm saying? I know if I got up and I answered that buzzer and I said, who is it? He wasn't going to be like, it's your dad, let me in. You know what I'm saying? I knew that wasn't happening, so I just let it go. You know what I'm saying? I know probably a lot of y'all are saying, yo, you should have opened the door or whatever. I understand. You know what I'm saying? Or answer the buzzer at least just to see what would come through the speaker. I understand. But I didn't because I really mean that. You know what I'm saying? But I say that to say this, right? People who pass on from this tangible state, they want to come back and own a soul again, right? Because this is what they miss. This is why they still exist. This is why ghosts still exist. Now, if my father was just a soul and only a soul, he would not still be living without that soul. Like, he's participating in my life from beyond what he existed from here. And this is just one example of him showing up in my dreams and stuff like that. But there are other times when he's actually, you know, contributing to my life by sending me stuff, telling me stuff, giving me messages, you know, even to the point where, you know, he's reconciling with me sometimes. You understand what I'm talking about? So this is not something, it's not like a memory that's repeating in my mind or something like that, or in his mind. No, this person is still living in spirit, but they want to own a soul. And this is why he was actually here, because he wants to own a soul. I can't get into that right now, you know what I'm saying? But this is what that visit was about. I know. You know what I mean? So you may hear or watch the movies when we're talking about like spirits want to occupy bodies and stuff like that. It's because they miss the tangible state. You know what I'm saying? They want a soul, you know, but they're still living. They're still living. So all of you deal with the haunted houses and stuff like that, you know what ghost is in your apartment right now. You just like, fuck it, I'm living with the ghost. You know what I mean? I expect this shit. You know what I'm saying? You're already embracing it now. You know what I'm talking about. And whether they send you messages and stuff, you know what I'm saying? That's between you and the ghost, unless you want to get on YouTube and talk about it too, or email me or something. But you get what I'm saying? So it's just like this, right? It's like, and the even more tell you about this, right? Like, think about it for a minute. The spirit, the mind, and the moon, right? The spirit is disconnected from the mind. It's separate from the brain, excuse me. The brain is the actual soul. It's the top of the soul. It's the solar unit in your body, right? So your brain, what it really is it's like a computer. It's like a computer system. It has a motor function. So you are able to operate inside of a body capsule because you have this thing centered inside of you, right? Center, sun, make the connection. Now, this is where the water and the moon and all of that comes in, is because your brain, right? Remember, your brain is your soul, separate from your mind, separate from your spirit. Your brain is getting signals with directions on how to function, how to utilize the motor function. Those signals are electrical signals that, so when you think about the moon and you think about the mind and you think about the spirit, think about water and think about electricity, giving your brain signals to actually put right hand up, right hand down, left hand up, left hand down, right? Your brain does not know how to do that. So your soul does not know how to do that until it is given the direction from the mind, from the spirit. All right. So even if you're looking at it astrologically wise, again, you look at the sign of Pisces, that's the end. That's really the away. That's the other world. That's not even really associated with the rest of the signs or the rest of the houses like that. Think about it. When you read astrology and you hear what Pisces is always daydreaming, or they're not in there, you know, they're not here with the rest of us, they need to be grounded, this, that, and the third. It's because this comes from a watery substance. It comes from water. It's the fluid, right? So you think about when you're being formed, your body, your soul is being formed. It's being formed inside of water, right? First it's the water, then it's the forming of your little tiny pea-sized brain, and then the evolution begins, right? So it's from that ethery, I guess you could call it, place that the mind begins to operate. You could look at it like this as well. If you look at and let's use the Holy Bible for an example, for a reference. If you bring it back to the beginning of the creation of man, right? Let's say, worst case scenario, Eve dies, right? Okay, they had the children, but the children die. Eve passes away. Adam's the only one left, right? So if Adam passes away, that's it. It's game over. You know what I'm saying? There's no more soul. There's no more souls here and everything. So another thing that she said, and don't quote me on this, but I believe she said that the soul is immortal. I disagree with that part. I don't think the soul is immortal. I think spirits are immortal, because the way that I've experienced things is that, you know, the spirits and the ghosts, they're still around. You know what I'm saying? They're not in bodies like the rest of us are, but they're still around. They're still existing in the mind, and the people who passed on are not. And but not formed in the form of this body. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not like you can actually go kill someone dead and then they just get right back up, like the zombie movies. Like I haven't seen. If you've seen that, let me know. But it just doesn't happen that way, right? You know what I'm saying? Their ghost comes, their spirit comes, or whoever's involved. You understand what I'm talking about, right? So now, my experiences with remote viewing is something that also brings me to the understanding that the spirit is forever. The spirit is everlasting, because I've shared experiences in other people's bodies through the mind, right? So remote viewing is when you're actually experiencing life through someone else's body. Now, I did this with someone who was alive that I know well enough to know, like, yeah, I'm inside of this person's body too. And I've also experienced it in a dream, but definitely understood that I was in someone else's body in the dream as well. So I don't know, you know, if I don't know these people from anywhere, you know what I'm saying? But I was just occupying their eyes, and I can see that's all of a part of the mind. You know what I mean? Now there are times, so some people might say, no, the soul is immortal. You can read up old texts about that stuff, and I get it, I understand. I've also had dreams about history where I couldn't have been alive in this body, but I've experienced being alive in a physical flesh in, I guess you could say, maybe around the 1700s, 1800s, right in New York City. You understand what I'm talking about? And so when it comes to people talking about the soul be immortal, I think what they mean is that when you pass down the DNA to another, that is how the soul becomes immortal. So that's why I use the Adam and Eve reference, because if your lineage is cut off, how do you come back, right? If you use that as a reference, how can you come back and be immortal? You need to actually use the body, the vessel, life, to get back, or else the creator has to create man all over again. So another way you can take that and think about how the brain is separate from the mind, and how the soul is separate from the spirit is in life. I think a spirit is tied to life. Again, we're talking about the womb, you're talking about the woman, you're talking about the water, which pushes the life, the soul out. And it was like dark before light. You get where I'm going with this stuff? So if you look at all of that, think about a computer, right? Like a real live computer. Like, think of the computer screen as the sun, as the soul, and think of the keyboard as the mind, as the spirit, right? So you get a program, and I mean, you get a computer, you get a CPU unit. Of course, it comes with RAM, right? You get memory and stuff. So it's like you can hold and store information inside of that central processing unit, which is your soul, which is your brain, right? When it comes to overload, what you got to do, you got to shut your computer down, or it'll shut down itself, right? So there's only about a certain amount of information that you can process at one time and actually operate and function on a level that suggests that you are being your optimal soul, your optimal self. Extend on that probably in another video. Now, let's say you delete a file. I look at people who are no longer here with us in a tangible state as a deleted file, right? So it's like, and what you hear about the internet is, although you delete a file, it's not gone. Like, it still exists. It's somewhere in there in the internet, in the freaking ether world. You know what I'm saying? But it still exists. So, you know, that would be like a memory, but that's one slice, that's one instance in a person's life. When you like delete a file, you delete a JPEG, right? It's one captured moment, you know what I mean? But the spirit, the ghost that I'm speaking about, that's more like a streaming of a life that was existing in a soul, had a soul, but is now soulless and living in the spirit world, still living in the spirit world. You know what I mean? Now, I told you before, like, I didn't used to talk about the dreams and the stuff and the ghosts and the spirits and all that stuff. I started easing it in. I'm gonna start easing it in a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? But what are your thoughts on this? What are your takes on this? Because, you know, I got to get back to work and stuff like that. But I just wanted to jump in and chime on this rather quickly and just state, you know, what my take on this is and why I believe it to be that way. You know what I'm saying? Now, if my experiences with ghosts and spirits of people who passed on was just like some repeat loop that did not apply to my everyday life in some sort of way, then I'd ignore completely what I'm even talking about right now. I'd say, you know, they're just lost, or, you know, they didn't cross over. You know, I know all about that stuff. Didn't cross to the other side, didn't see the light, all of that. You know what I'm saying? But if I didn't have those experiences, I wouldn't be speaking this way. You know what I mean? And that's my take on it. I believe the mind is separate from the soul. The mind is different from the brain. The spirit is way more powerful than what one might think if you're largely based on the whole soul thing. I think, again, like you see even more, just before I close this out, look also at the specials like on National Geographic or the Discovery Channel especially when they're talking about referencing Egypt, right? And you see the pharaohs. Have you seen these videos that pop up now? They got like the pharaohs, the faces of the pharaohs, and they like side by side them with people who are alive now. Some of them celebrities, most of them are celebrities and stuff like that. And they talk about how they resemble each other. So that's kind of what I believe everyone to take as the soul being immortal, you know, reincarnation and stuff like that. And trust me, I get that part. But I think that's also DNA being reproduced. You understand what I'm saying? Evolutionary psychology, passing the seed down along with some information that becomes life. But life, right? Life will still exist when the soul is gone, right? Again, if Adam, now I guess this is something you could talk about extra, right? Like if Adam was taken out, does that mean it's the end for consciousness because there are no observers left, right? So I guess that's where we can leave this conversation, this discussion, because if there is no more soul, how do you know life is still existing? You know what I'm saying? I think it's just going to be a whole bunch of ghosts and spirits. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm saying if perhaps the creator will show itself himself, herself. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely is going to have to go back to the creator, because man has to be created and all over again in order to understand. So it's just like, okay, even if there's no consciousness, right? There's got to be a mind. It's got to be a mind that actually thinks about this place, this space, this region, and say, okay, I want the color red. I want 3 legs on a person this time, and 4 fingers though, and 1 webs on them, and there's got to be a mind to conjure that up. That's my thoughts. I don't want to go too far off on this though, but that's my thoughts right now, y'all. I get back to y'all when I can. I'm getting back to work. I'm out.